Hello, welcome to Pecan Corner. I'm Tina. Today I'm going to make lasagna. I'm going to use some of the ricotta that I made in one of my recent videos out of some milk that had been discounted. I'm also going to use all of our friends that we usually get eggs from, their chickens had quit laying. And so I asked on Facebook if anybody had extra eggs that I could buy, and by the time it was all over with, I had gotten eggs. You know, it's feast or famine. You have to get eggs when you can get them, because the hens will quit laying sometimes, and then you're just kind of it's a dearth for a while. So before it was over, I had eggs from 3 or 4 different people, and now have 3 or 4, about 5 dozen eggs. So that's good. That means that we have plenty of eggs to get us through the holidays. The recipe that I'm using, I'm going to make my pasta first, and the basic recipe I'm going to use is the one that came in the book with my little pasta maker, which the only difference is I like a little dab of salt in my dough. Otherwise it's just literally just flour and eggs. The recipe calls for 1 1/2 cups of flour and 2 extra large eggs. Well, that's the other nice thing, you know, with yard eggs you get lots of different sizes of eggs, and so this way you can use up those extra large ones. They're just perfect. If you don't have extra large, I think there's a formula that you can use to know how many medium or large eggs it would take to make up an extra large egg. But I didn't bother looking that up, so somebody else will need to. Alright, now let me get me a fork. Oh, I keep going off without the things that I need. Here we go. We are getting ready for Thanksgiving around here. We're going to be on our own this year. We have invitations elsewhere, but it's kind of hard for Paul to travel comfortably, and so we decided we just stay here. And you know, once everybody's grown, it's hard to get them all in one place very often. So so that's all right. We'll have our celebration with one of our sons next week, and then with the other ones when we get the opportunity. I'm just stirring this up with a fork. You know, the old-fashioned way is to put your flour on the board and stir it that way. I may add one more egg to this because I don't think it's going to be, I think it's going to be too dry. So I may add one more small egg here. I've not made this kind of pasta a whole lot in my life, but what I always made were homemade egg noodles, which you know, have a little shortening in them. And yeah, that needs another egg. Let me get out one more egg. However, I'm not going to get another extra large one. I'm going to get what's actually a small to medium one. I'm excited about the holidays this year, just because it's so many things to be grateful for and thankful for, and Christmas is always one of my favorite holidays to start with. So this weekend sometime I will put up our Christmas tree, and that'll be fun. We'll enjoy that all through the season. We just had our first cold snap here. Normally our first cold snap comes about Halloween. And so this year it's coming a little late, which according to the almanac may mean that winter that takes forever to start lasts forever. So we might have us a little long weather here, long winter. There we go. Yeah, that's good. This is the homemade pasta that I'm making. You can use for, you can turn it into fettuccine, linguini, into ravioli. It's the same dough I would use to make ravioli with. So it's a good all-around pasta dough. If you want to make spinach pasta, take some canned or frozen spinach, squeeze it very dry and chop it really finely, and then add it when you're about at this stage to the pasta and knead it in well, and it'll turn the pasta green for you. Same thing with tomato pasta. Okay, there we go. I'm going to wrap this. I'm going to wrap this video up when I finish this, so that I don't have it too long. So many of my videos have ended up being so long, and I know that's hard for people to sit there for a long time. So I'm going to I'll do this one, and then I'll do my putting the lasagna together as a separate video. Okay. Just knead it until it's pretty smooth and it's not sticky. See how nice that is? It needed that one extra egg. Okay. Now I'm going to set my little roller open and make sure I flour it good before I put it in there. Put a little flour on my machine. And now, oops, let me see. Oh, I need to move gotta move my camera. Okay, let's move the camera here. Oops. Okay, there we go. There we go. The nice thing about this pasta roller is that it will get it so nicely, evenly smooth. And I usually have to roll it through the machine several times to kind of condition it properly. Add some more flour here. But see how lovely, lovely yellow color it is because of those nice homegrown eggs. So you're going to run it through several times to condition it and to kind of give it that smooth texture that you want. Now for my homemade egg noodles, I'm so used to doing them by hand, and that makes them a lot thicker and they become very rustic, you know, because of that thickness. My counter is too narrow for the pasta machine's to hold on to. So I have to put a cutting board on it to give it the thickness to attach the clamp. So that's one of the reasons I keep one of these little wooden cutting boards around all the time. I like wooden boards better than plastic ones, just because that's what I'm used to. But the main reason is because I need something that I can clamp onto for this kind of thing. Okay, here we go. One thing this does do is it makes a big old mess, but it's just flour. It sweeps right up, dusts right up. So it's no, see how much nicer that's looking? I think you can see it in the film. See, this time I'm not even going to have to add more flour. Just fold it. See how much smoother it's coming out? See, it's coming out, it's getting a much smoother texture. And a big part of that's from the added flour, but it's also partly from the continual rolling of it. Kneading it would do the same thing, but I'm kind of lazy, so I'm just gonna roll it instead of kneading it. I got my garlic planted this week. There again, like I said, I ran a little bit later than I could have. Bob Anderson, who operates the website gourmetgarlicgardens.com, lives in a town near to us, and he used to raise garlic commercially. And he told me that for our part of the country, he said to wait and plant my garlic when the elephant garlic has sprouted through the ground, and that happened about 2 weeks ago. But I finally got mine in the ground. If you have not already planted your garlic, you need to get it in if you want to have some for next year. If you live in the South, because it needs this time in the winter to grow. And if you need garlic, seed garlic, the website I just mentioned, gourmetgarlicgardens.com, has a directory of various suppliers from all over the United States who raise seed garlic. So you can go in there and you can look and you can see a lot of them are going to be sold out by this time of year. But some of them may still have some garlic, and they're going to be the best place to get it from. And barring that, I think Burpee's website still has some seed garlic for sale. And if you can't get seed garlic, or you can't afford it because it is expensive, you know, you could try planting the stuff from the grocery store. It does sprout. I can't keep mine from sprouting. So the stuff people say about it not sprouting, well, maybe that's true for some, but not for the garlic that we get in this part of the world. Because all the commercial garlic that I've bought does still sprout. And it can't hurt to try some. On Bob's website, he has instructions for how to treat it. Soak it in in some water with a little dab of baking soda for overnight, and then give it a good just a wipe or a drop in a little alcohol before you plant it, and that will kill off any pathogens that might have come in with it, or molds or things. Okay, now then, one more pass and then I'm going to start narrowing it down. You've noticed I'm doubling it each time, and that just allows it to be rolled out nicer. Now I'm ready. I'm not going to double it this time. I'm going to move my gauge there so that it is thinner, and I'm going to run the whole sheet through this thinner roller. The other thing I found the last time I made pasta is do not try to save it left over in the refrigerator. With these nice eggs in it, it'll turn green. So you don't do that. Just go ahead and either cook it up or freeze it or hang it to dry. I have not dried this kind of pasta with eggs in it before, and so I don't know how that works. So if you've done that and you want to talk about it in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Because I'm very interested in making our own pasta that I could dry at home to have for use. So please do leave us a comment. If you've done a video on it, please link to it from down there. I'd love to hear from you on that one. Okay, one more to get it super thin, and then we're ready to cut it. You got to be sure you keep it up so that it doesn't fall on the floor when it gets this long, because it is very loose and very drapey. Nice drapey texture. I like that. There we go. I just give it a fold there. Alright, now all I need to do is cut it, trim it. If you have a pizza cutter, this works really well for this kind of thing. I want my pieces to be the size of my pan that I'm going to cook it in. Okay, so you can use a ruler or a tape measure, or you can use your pan itself to measure it with. And because this is lasagna, I'm only going to cut the sheets in half lengthwise widths. I'll put a little flour so that they won't stick together while they're sitting there waiting. I've ordered my extra bees for next year. I want to add 2 more hives to the 2 that I bought this year to start with. If you are thinking about raising bees next year, now is the time to start get ready to order your bees, because they'll run out. They won't ship until the spring, or you won't go pick them up until the spring. But you need to tell your beekeepers now, because the supplies are limited. There's high demand, and of course, as we all know, there's a lot of hive losses these days. So there's a huge demand for those that are out there. So that's something that you want to think about doing. You need to buy your bees from within your own state as well. So look for suppliers in your own state. All right, so there's my lasagna noodles. my machine, my pasta machine has cutters if I wanted to make a smaller noodle, or I could just use this and cut my linguinis there. So that's where we're going to end this one. I'll pick it up in a few minutes in a separate video in making my lasagna. So thanks a bunch, and I hope that you'll enjoy this. I hope you'll give us a thumbs up, and please subscribe. Love to hear from you. All right, now I'm making my sauce. I have browned about 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of Italian sausage, and now I'm going to add a whole chopped onion and a whole bunch of cloves of garlic. I'm going to let that simmer for a little bit. Okay, now it's been sauteing for a while. The onions are starting to turn transparent. I'm going to add a cupful of water and a quart of my home canned tomatoes. I use my opener now. The only thing I ever used to use it for was opening canned milk. And now I use it to open my canned goods. So these are homemade crushed tomatoes that I canned last year. Now I'm going to wait until this has come to a boil before I add my tomato powder. I'm just reusing a container that store-bought tomato powder came in, but this is my homemade tomato powder, and the recipe normally would use a can of tomato paste, but instead I'm going to use 1/3 of a cup of my tomato powder and the cup of water that I put in there. However, the water has to be boiling before you add the tomato powder, otherwise it'll never thicken up right. So that's the secret to using tomato powder, is make sure that your liquid is boiling before you add the powder to it. In my dry mixes that I make where I use tomato powder, I always have you just pour the boiling water over it. So even if you cook it for a while after that, you still want to start out with boiling water before you add anything to it. So if you're like I used to be, I'd read recipes that say bring it to a boil and then add this, and I think, well, why do I need to do that? I figure once it's hot I can just add it, but it really does make a difference in how well things turn out. I'm going to add, I had my own basil this year, but we bought some basil from our friend Deborah, who raises a lot of different herbs and makes her, she has like 5 or 6 different kinds of basil, and so her blend is just out of this world. This flavor, the scent is so good. So if you live in the area and you're out of any kind of herbs, oregano, she's got tarragon. So if you're out of herbs and need some dried herbs, give Deborah a holler from the market and see if she's got any left. I put a couple of teaspoons of the basil, and her basil is so good that that's all it takes, whereas other kinds it might take a whole tablespoon. And this is some Russian oregano. Oh, it smells, oh my goodness, you won't believe the difference in the way these smell over store-bought varieties. They're just heavenly. And some anise seed. I know there's anise in the sausage, but I'm going to add a little bit more. That's about maybe half a teaspoon. Okay, my water's come to a boil, so now I'm going to add my tomato powder. I'm going to add about a third of a cup here. I know I'm eyeing it, but if you're measuring it, you can measure it out to about a third of a cup. There we go. We're going to let that cook for about an hour. Okay, while the tomato sauce is cooking, I'm going to get my ricotta ready to go. I'm going to add, this is probably 3 cups full of ricotta. I'm going to add 2 eggs. I'm going to add about a teaspoon of salt. You can adjust that as you wish. And about a tablespoon of parsley. Parsley is mostly for color. Between the golden color of the egg yolk and the parsley, I tell you, that's some pretty stuff. There we go. Alright, and then I'm just going to set this aside and hold on to this until I'm ready to start putting it all together. The egg will just kind of give it a little moisture and kind of help it stay together. Okay, I nearly forgot. The other thing I'm adding is some mushroom powder. I dehydrated some mushrooms and I wasn't real happy with the way they rehydrated again. These were baby portobellos. So I turned them into mushroom powder. And they are fabulous. This is fabulous stuff. It adds that, there's a Japanese word called umami, which is that kind of lovely flavor that you get on your in your mouth from things that are savory. And this mushroom powder, it almost looks like flour, and it's so lightweight. I'm going to add a couple of teaspoons of that, and that adds it adds mushroom flavor, but it also just adds a lovely texture to the food, and so it's really good in a sauce like this. And we were watching Restaurant Impossible a while back, and they actually made a dish that they made a mushroom sauce and used the mushroom powder as the main component in it. So it's just a real good thing to do. So when you get a good bargain on some good flavorful mushrooms, dehydrate them and turn them into powder. But like I said, it's almost like talc. It's so lightweight. So you do have to be careful, and if you're sensitive, you might even want to wear a mask when you're grinding them up, because that powder does go everywhere. All right, now I'm ready to put the lasagna together. I'm going to start by ladling some of the sauce into the bottom of my pan. This old pan, I think we all have these. It starts out as a pan that you get, you know, when you first start housekeeping or something, and was never anything special, but for some reason it's just always the right size and the right shape, and you find yourself using it constantly, and so you don't ever replace it with anything better looking. I have better looking pans, they just are not as perfect for the things that I make that this one is. So I'm going to be sad if I ever it gets a hole in it or something. All right, I put my sauce down in there, and now I'm going to layer my sheets of pasta over it. There we go. Next, I'm going to put a layer of the cheese. We use about half of my cheese here. Spread it out all over it. You can also use cottage cheese if you don't have ricotta, or if cottage cheese, you know, that cottage cheese is more likely to be on sale. Just drain it really well. But if you look, I have another video. I made this out of milk, a gallon of milk that was reduced to $1 for a quick sale. It had not spoiled, but it was out of date. And so I brought it home and immediately turned it into cheese and stuck it in the freezer until I had time to make it. It's best made with whole milk, and some people even add cream to it for their ricotta. This happened to be 2%, just because that's what I found, and I wanted to see if it would work. So we're going to find out tonight if it makes good ravioli. I think it's going to be just fine. It tastes good. All right, now there's the ricotta. Now I'm going to add mozzarella, layer of that, all grated. I've been buying pre-grated cheese because for the most part it's just as inexpensive as the kind that's in a brick. However, if you can get artisan cheeses, there's a dairy near us that makes their own cheese, and their cheese goes twice as far because it's so much richer and nicer, and so you can, even though it costs more, you can use half as much, so you end up not spending any more money when you use it. But it's a little too far for me to drive to keep it on hand all the time. But it's Wellfusen Dairy, if you ever see Wellfusen products. And you can go to the farm, you can see their cows, they raise their own cows, milk them, and make all their own cheeses. It's a really neat thing. I'm using, I know I was lazy tonight. I actually have some Parmesan that I got on clearance for $2 a wedge, but I am too lazy to grate it tonight, so all right. And this pasta, I did not cook it yet, so it's going to cook with the I did it in the wrong order. I've got to add my sauce on top of my cheeses before I add my next layer of pasta. There we go. Get with the program, Tina. The great thing about a good Italian pasta sauce is you can use whatever you've got. You know, if you've got Italian sausage, if that's what was on sale or if that's what you've made, you can use that. If you've got hamburger, you can use that. If you don't have any meat, you can make a vegetarian one with just your cheeses. So, you know, it's very easy to do with whatever you have on hand, and we all love those kinds of dishes. You know, that's what peasant food was all about, and it still today is the best foods. Anybody can be a good cook if you can buy every single ingredient at the top of the line. But it's being a good cook and making do with what you have or what your budget will allow or what's in season or what's local. That's what will turn you into something really, really good. You know, we're so spoiled today. We just don't realize how much variety is available to us compared to what was available to even to our parents when they were younger. You know, fresh bananas in stores, that didn't start till about the 1930s. Fruits like mangoes, I didn't even see until long after I was grown. They just weren't in the stores in this part of the country. You had them maybe down on the coast, but foods weren't transported as far as they are now, and so everything was more local and local suppliers, and so people ate more locally, and their diets were. And I see that today. in the things that we sell at our farmer's market. Oops. Oops. Forgot to turn that off. The older people that come to buy things, they want the old varieties that they grew up with. They don't want the fancy new ones. But if there's an heirloom, they love the old porters, or they love the Cherokee purples, because those were the ones that they grew up with. So it's kind of a juggle to find just the right thing. But you will find in your local market that everybody has something that they're looking for, that you can that maybe is different from what it is in other markets. So it just depends on where you are and who your audience is. Okay. Kind of being a little stingy with my sauce because I want my last of my sauce to be able to go over the top. And I want to go ahead and use all of these noodles since I have them, so that I don't waste them, because as I said, they won't keep well. Okay, I've just realized that I finished putting my lasagna together without turning my camera back on. So anyway, I layered it, and I continued layering it until I had my last layer of pasta. I poured all of my remaining sauce over that and topped it with another good 8 ounces of cheese. Now I'm going to pop it into the oven at 350 degrees for about an hour for this big one, and we'll see if it's all bubbly by that time. And then when we come back, I'll pull it out and show you. One this big, after it's cold, I'll cut it in squares and freeze it in serving size squares. Paul says that that's how restaurants do it, and that way they're just easy to pull out and serve, and they'll be just as good as they were if they were fresh cooked. Alright, I'll be back when it's done. And there we have it. A beautiful lasagna. And when you take it out of the oven, you need to wait 10 minutes and let it rest just like you would a roast. And so that it'll settle down, so that you can remove it. You could let it rest even up to half an hour and it would be just fine. It would settle more. What I'm going to do is, when it's cold, I will cut it into squares, and I'll freeze the squares, and then we can have it for a simple meal that all I have to do is thaw out. So there we go. I'm going to enjoy it with some of these lovely greens that my friend gave me, and that's there you have it. Easy as pie. I hope you've enjoyed it. And oh, by the way, I ended up using 2 quarts of tomatoes to get enough sauce. I forgot to mention that earlier, that I ended up putting another quart of tomatoes in there, just to have plenty of sauce. Of course, this is a huge, 9 by 12 pan. So just wanted you to be aware of that. The great thing about lasagna is you can make it with anything that you've got, and just use whatever's on hand. So, all right. Thanks a bunch. Y'all have a great evening. We're going to go eat. Enjoy.